from your point of view here as an expert on the topic, why is it so critical for us climbers to look at strength training as part of our overall training program?
Climbing is a really specialized sport, and we are getting some like strength training from climbing, but it's not like total body effective. And when you only do a highly specialized sport, that can become problematic in the future. That can set you up for injuries and things like that because of the repetitive nature of like the only thing you're ever doing is climbing. And climbing doesn't effectively train all parts of your body. And it's really important that we are doing some kind of strength training for all parts of our body, not only to support climbing, which it does, but also just to support longevity and like health. And, you know, the older we get, the more muscle mass we naturally start to lose. So we lose like 3 to 5% of our muscle mass per decade if we don't do anything to train that.
Mm,
That works out to be, I think, somewhere between like 0.5 and 1% every year. And
yeah.
we also lose like 1 to 3% of our strength every year. And I think it's something like 3 to 4% of our power if we're not training to maintain it, like as
Wow.
we
Is
age.
that after a certain age that
That's
that
after 30.
happens?
That's
30.
after
Okay.
30.
That's great. Yeah, actually, I recall you doing an Instagram post on that, and me clocking it because I'm 44, and I'm like, oh shit,
Nice.
I'm on the
44.
other side of this calculation, you know?
Me too. I'm 40, so we're 40-year-old climbers.
Yes, that's
Woohoo.
great. So that's super interesting. We'll probably dive into this a little bit more here, but essentially, we're talking about not only helping us to prevent like injuries in the moment so that we can continue to train and climb harder, but we're also talking about through this long lens. If I want to climb until I'm 50, 60, 70. You know, I may not be pushing the grades that I am right now, but climbing is this beautiful sport that connects you with nature and community, and the only way to do that, you know, long into our golden years is to stay strong, stay injury free. And if we're going to lose, you know, anywhere from a 0.5% to 1% of strength, and even more than that, as you're saying, in power, having some sort of general strength routine is what's going to offset that.
Yeah, exactly. And like, who says we can't continue to climb this hard when we're older? Like, we haven't, like, there are some people who are doing that, who are pushing those grades at older ages. And A,
Hell
and
yeah.
B, like, we don't have any climbers who have been strength training for the duration of their life, um, their career in climbing to show that, like, maybe you can maintain this level.
All right, y'all, just a quick shout out to today's awesome sponsor, which is Friction Labs. A chalk, look at this stuff. They make the best of the best. And now in 100% recyclable packaging outside and inside. Look at that. It's so good. I've been using this chalk for a decade, y'all, because it just works. It feels amazing on my skin. I chalk up less. I think you guys are going to love it as well. You now get 20% more in this new eco-friendly packaging, and you get 20% off by hitting that link below using code STRUGGLE at frictionlabs.com. I love this stuff. Let's get back to the interview. Just from a general sense here, is strength training for all ages? How would you define for us climbers, you know, is there any time that one should stop strength training, for example?
No, absolutely not. Like, strength training is for all ages, like, including children. And it's safe
Mm,
for children to strength train. And if people want to learn more about that, like if someone's a youth coach or someone's a parent who wants to learn more about that, my friend Derek from Barbell Medicine has a whole 4-part article series that's evidence-based on resistance training for kids. Like, not only is it healthy, it doesn't stunt their growth, it's also health promoting, and it's something that like we're trying to get more and more kids to do.
You are an expert in this field. You are a highly performing power lifter and athlete. So the assumption might be that you don't struggle when it comes to strength training, or that you haven't. But um, I'd like to ask you, where have you or where do you struggle in this world of strength training?
Um, I mean, I think that when I first started strength training, I definitely didn't think I was made for it.
Hmm.
Like, I people see me squatting now. When I first started, I couldn't really squat more than 85 pounds, and I was having like back pain, and I was having a really hard time like learning that movement and like feeling confident in it, because like I never trained lower body. I never did any kind of resistance training. Like it was really hard for me. And so sometimes when I have a lot of newer clients, they're like, "Oh wow, I just really suck at this," or "I'm just not like made for this." I was like, I literally started there too. Like I was like stuck at 85-pound squats. I was at bench pressing the empty barbell like when I first started. That's all I could do. So I really struggled with feeling like I'm not very strong. I'm not made for this sport. Like maybe I'm not made to like do this.
I think that's a great place for us to kick off because we're going to start with beginners here. And let's say they've never stepped into the weight room, they've never stopped at the weight, area of their climbing gym. Um, there probably aren't any common mistakes that are being made right now because they literally haven't done anything. So for somebody who's that fresh and they want to get into strength training for all the reasons that you laid out so well at the beginning here, what would you have them focus on? What's a good starting point so that they're not getting overwhelmed, but they're also not getting injured?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, first of all, don't be afraid to walk into the weight room. I think a lot of people are like, oh, like they're intimidated. They don't want to not look like they know what they're doing. It's like when you go dancing, no one's paying attention to you. They're all worried about what they're doing, you know? So don't worry about that. No one's watching you or judging you. If they are, they're an asshole. But yeah,
Right.
just go in. Don't be afraid. I think if you're very, very new and you're really hesitant, like pick one exercise you're going to start with. Like it doesn't have to be really complicated, and you don't have to have the perfect program, or the perfect split or whatever it is. Like go in and like pick an exercise that looks interesting to you, whether it's like a squat, like a deadlift, a bench press, an overhead press, even pull-ups, something that looks interesting to you, and like let's just start with that. When I work with like people who are new to strength training or even just new to training in general, as a coach, my goal is to help people feel like they're checking the boxes off. Because if you feel like you're checking the boxes off, it helps you build momentum, and it keeps you excited for training, and it keeps you going. If I lay out a plan for someone that's like way more than what they can handle, that's when people start like failing and falling off the wagon, because they're like, oh my God, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this. And then I also have to do all of this stuff. And like, I'm not really checking all these boxes. Oh, I'm not really doing the plan. And then they stop. So
Mm.
I'd rather have someone have like a minimum viable program, which could be one lift, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, and start with that. And it doesn't have to be barbell lifting either. Like you could start with dumbbells, you could start with kettlebells. If you're really undertrained, you could literally start with like body weight squats, or box squats or something like that. So like finding an exercise that looks interesting to you and just starting with like a minimum viable program.